Allow me to reintroduce myself.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute Podcast. And it's your host, Supreme Decisions. And today, I actually wanted to start out with a great new announcement. We are now live on Alexa. So if you have Alexa in your home, just tell Alexa, hey, turn on Supreme Decisions Legal Minute Podcast, and you're ready to go. Also, you know we're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook under Supreme Talk. And the podcast, for those that are listening, I appreciate you guys. And we're on every major podcasting platform. And if you're on SoundCloud listening, be sure you support the podcast. Because if not, I'm actually going to be removing it from SoundCloud. Now, just for those newbies that are just checking in, I'm Supreme Decisions. I won a RICO case in Georgia in pro se, representing my own interests, and I teach law in a simplified form to help people in a day-to-day basis simply or better apply what they already know or reinforce what they already know and allow them to learn it better in a sense of being able to protect their own legal interests. And basically, this is definitely for encouragement. We would like engagement on any platform that you're listening on. We'd like to know where you're listening from. And we'd like to know what it is that you want to listen to. We are working on getting other platforms, and we're working on growing to other levels. So today, I actually want to talk about something that I got into maybe about 3 weeks ago. And it's a Apple TV show, and it's called Defending Jacob. Well, Defending Jacob has Chris Evans in it, and for those that don't know, that's Captain America. And most people know that I love the Avengers. I love pretty much the way the series went. But in this, it's actually put together very well. It's a weekly series, and it begins with a grand jury, or in the scenes of a grand jury. What I love about this series is how they're pulling very little punches, but they're giving you an insight to that aspect of the legal process. And what I mean by that is most people have very little idea what a grand jury consists of. And typically a grand jury is a set of people, 16 to 23 people that are selected to examine the validity of an accusation. Now, understanding that, because there's no adage, a prosecutor can indict a piece of paper if they wanted to. Now, that's very true in a lot of cases because, they get to cherry pick the cases that they want, and they also get to cherry pick on who they prosecute, which is why you have an obscene amount of people getting off on crimes or having lesser penalties because it's a deal-making process for revenue based on the ideals that are set forth in America. That's why I tell everybody it's not a war against skin tone anymore. It's a war against the poor. While there are people that still believe or still see skin tone, there are more often than not looking at someone's pockets, looking at their economic situation. They're looking directly at how they can get money from that person. Generally, it's done through incarceration. That's why you have, out of 2.1 million incarcerated persons that we have in this country, 840,000 of them are in jails simply because they cannot make bail. Some as long as 9 months. And in a society where we're living paycheck to paycheck, 9 months is a complete lifestyle change. But that's also one of the things that I give you from my podcast. One of the things I give you from the teachings that I have. One of the things that the YouTube channel offers is a lifestyle change. Because not only are you getting this is something that you should adapt to your life. This is something that you should live day in and day out. Because at the end of the day, it's your liberty each and every time that you're looking to protect. And to go on with the grand jury context, I want you to think about something. Because even in the last few days, we've watched, as I spoke about, the police not being able to generate revenue for the past 30 to 45 days, and that they were going to pretty much become more violent. They're going to become more aggressive, and they're going to ramp up pretty much revenue generations. Some of the things that we've already seen is people that have had cases. There is no fight. They're sending them links to actually pay them. Just pay the fine, pay the fine, pay the fine, pay the fine. But here's the flip side of that. If nobody's been working for the past 60 days, where are they going to get this extra money to pay a fine? So they have to fight now. But that does not stop them from asking. Just like a debt collector. They go out and they send you notice after notice, but they change up how the verbiage is in it. They send you things that have different colors on it. Why? Because they understand how the brain works. They are using the exact same tactics that these debt collectors are using. And for the most part, it's working. Because more people are afraid of fighting than they are of winning. Because it goes into an apt fear of success. Most people don't want success. Because success brings something that most people aren't able to live up to. Because it brings with it expectation. Because if you win once, they expect you to win again. And if you win twice, they expect you to keep winning. That's why you have a lot of times where people say you don't want to meet your heroes. Because they might be winning in an aspect which you have no idea about for the most part. But when you meet them personally, because of their winning, they have a different lifestyle that they have to lead. So it comes off as something else that it's not. And in this instance, if you're winning one court case, you're winning 2 court cases, they're going to expect you to keep fighting, because this is where we go back into things such as habit evidence. But I'll get into that because I'm going to talk about something, again, that's in the media right now and how they're using it through the context of the grand jury. But, again, we're seeing a lot of non-grand juries, and the ones that are being convened are okaying these violent acts from police officers. They're okaying these violent acts that are being done to unarmed people. They're okaying these violent acts that are being done, and it's even gone into the realms of vigilantism, because we've had multiple cases where that's taught. The one that's really big is Ahmaud Arbery and the McMichaels, Greg and Travis. The problem is most times grand juries don't, or not even privy to actual information, because the one thing most people don't understand is you don't have to submit actual evidence to a grand jury. But let me back up a little bit. A grand jury is typically of 16 to 23 people selected to examine the validity of an accusation. Before trial, it is used to create an indictment in most cases. The grand jury is empowered by law to conduct legal proceedings in an investigative potential criminal conduct, and the term and rather criminal court charges should be brought. A grand jury makes a subpoena physical evidence or a person to testify. Now, I said a lot of stuff to say this simply. This is generally done because you hear people, oh, well, I got indicted. Oh, my God, I got indicted. Most people is not even understanding that an indictment is just something that you can actually rebut because it's not evidence. You can actually get a indictment thrown out based on hearsay. Because, again, the simplicity of all of this is the understanding the context and the concepts that are being placed in front of you. Because most of us don't know what it is to have these in front of them. It goes into a mist of panic because oftentimes you hear CEOs getting indicted. You oftentimes hear of actual criminals being indicted. And they use it in such a grotesquely derogatory term to where you lose context of what the indictment is. And it's nothing more than something that can be rebutted. That's it. It's just something that they're putting in front of you because, again, it goes into the tactics. And that's what this show talks about. The tactics of the prosecutor. Because, again, they don't look for the truth. They don't look for the killer. They're not trained to solve crimes. They're not trained to find the truth. They are trained to generate revenue. They are trained to put together something in a hypothesis. That's why you often hear me call them, along with detectives, they are scientists, because they create a hypothesis and they fit the evidence to go along with it around it. But now here's the real big part of it, because at some point they've got to take this evidence that they're pondering or putting together, and then they have to create something with it. They have to create something meaningful. And the problem with that is most of the time they can't, which is why they lose more than 70% of the time when they go to trial. I'm going to say that one more time. Those that are fighting just criminal aspects, not including traffic, not including civil, but criminal aspects. Those that fight, and there's only 5% of people that fight, so 95% of people pay. So the 5% that fight, 70% of them, or basically almost 4 out of 5 people, win. I'm going to say that one more time. Almost 4 out of 5 people win when they fight back. And for me, if I got somebody, I'm actually a gambler. I love to gamble. I love to bet. And most times, especially when it comes to me, I bet big on me because I don't believe that I can lose. I don't think I was built to lose. I'm pretty confident to know that losing is not something that is acceptable to me. That I can say without any doubt, any mind change, anything that will be deemed unnecessary for the most part. But here's the real kicker. Because what happens is we now have an opportunity. And in that opportunity, it's the opportunity to create something. The creation that we're looking for is for that idea of hope. And even understanding that what their job is to do when they're putting together a grand jury is to convince either 16 or 23 people, which is more often going to be 16, that what they're talking about is agreeable. Now, in my RICO case, just to give you an example, just to give you something to sink your teeth in, they had to do it 4 times before they got a true bill. A true bill is when everybody signs off on it and saying, you know what, y'all have something there. It is not easy to get a true bill because just like it is not easy to convince a trial jury, 12 people or 6 people. 6 people is a lot easier to convince that what you're saying is correct. It is a hell of a lot more difficult to have 12 people say what you're doing is correct and what you're doing is right and upstanding and all that other good stuff. So it's easier to do it one way, but it's even more difficult to prove it to 16 people and even more difficult to prove it to 23 people to see everything in the same light. So a lot of times what they'll do is try to skip the indictment phase. They'll try to skip the grand jury phase. So just understand that a grand jury is not convened for every felony. An indictment is not set forth for every felony. Those are things that are generally brought up later. Because one of the facts that they did do with us was they attempted to re-indict us during the trial because they wanted to change the charges. But we never signed off on it. And then when we did, it was a show of force for basically the judge's bias in the case. And then, the trial went as it did, and we came home. Because at the end of the day, it's understanding the functions of how things are done. And the grand jury is a simple Fifth Amendment requirement because no person shall be held to answer to a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of grand jury. See, this is where a lot of words to not really say anything. Because I always talk about words have power. But what you're talking about here, and again, this is not the actual verbiage of the Constitution. This is a simplified version of what is being stated regarding an indictment. When you talk about no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Again, context is a part of the programming, which they want you to believe that doing something other than this is okay. Because we're taught to trust everything that they do. And we're taught that they have authority. The problem is, in actuality, we are the authoritarians. We are the ones that give them power. They don't give it to us, and we actually give it to them, but only when there's a crime. Because one of the things I love, again, is one of Warren Buffett's favorite books, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. It's when we get out of line and we do something outside the realms of not keeping our hands to ourselves, not playing well with others, and being able to actually build and grow with others. Those are things that you learn when you first get to class, when you first start school, when you're first understanding what nurturing is. These are the things that you learn. The problem is they're being stripped from you as you grow older. But at the same time, these very basic concepts of life are what you have to stand on. These basic fundamentals that were given to you in kindergarten are the ones that you should grow with your entire life. And there lies the inner application of law. Because when you decide to not follow one of those, that's when you are offering authority to someone else over you. I'm going to say that again. When you step out and you're injuring others, you're damaging others' properties, you're economically damaging people, that's when you authorize the person other than yourself to make decisions for you. And in this, the whole context or the whole point of this is to create doubt in one's mind. It's to create fear. It's to create assurance. Because if I have an indictment saying you did something, it's just another tool that's used to say, you know what? I did prove it here. I proved it one time. Because if I show someone that I'm trying to convince that you did something somewhere where others have said you did it, it's a lot easier for them to be swayed to my story. Because remember, I talk about painting the picture. That's part of their painting. That's part of the manipulation. Because what I've learned a long time ago, and it's funny because I still use it today. We are trained to be a society of followers. We are not trained to be a society of leaders. So, in that context, nobody wants to be first. However, everybody wants to follow first. Because again, remember I told you, it's fearful when you're jumping out and it's going to be successful. Because if it's something wrong with it and you were first, you'd be like, yeah, I shouldn't have listened to that guy, because everybody needs somebody to blame. That's what our legal system is doing. Because we believe somebody in an orange jumpsuit is guilty of something. We believe that anybody that has been to jail is guilty of something. But then when you look at the fact that over 70% of those that are released from death row are released on DNA evidence that is showing they could have never committed the crime. You had the woman that lied on Medgar Evers. On her deathbed, she was like, yeah, I lied. However, we sat up there and executed. This man was executed. Then I talked about the prisoners that were deemed innocent, but the state executed anyway. Why? Oh, well, they were prisoners. But most people don't understand, just because you're in jail, just because you've been incarcerated, just because you've been arrested, does not mean you've done anything. And one of the quotes I saw this morning, I almost fell out my chair, was the fact that you're looking at a couple of videos from, again, like the last couple of days. And I talk about entitlement. I talked about even an instance where the El Paso police officer said, all you had to do was talk to me. Then McMichael's running up to Ahmaud Arbery, and basically, you have to talk to me. You had others stopping a UPS truck from making a delivery. You have to talk to me. And the thing is, most people think that they have some type of authority over you. Most people think that they have the ability to think for you. And the crazier part about this is there is no consequence. There's no repercussions from it. And then when there is a repercussion, and you've been learning this your entire life, they can initiate it, but it's the return act that's followed up on. Because you remember in grade school, you turn around, somebody hits you in the head. Well, you turn around and hit them back. Who gets caught? The first act or the second one? That's the same way it's done generally in law, unless there's video. And thank God for a lot of these situations, because the phone is in everybody's hand, you're getting video. And because I say thank God is because, again, you looked at yesterday, Tao blocked folks from filming it. But he actually did turn over his body camera footage, and he got fired for it. You look at the other gentleman that had already been involved in multiple shootings. He had killed multiple people. He had been indicted 6 or 7 times and no charges. Keep that in mind. He was indicted 6 or 7 times with no charges. No discipline. And he had been working. But then he leaves his knee on someone's neck for 7 minutes. He was there. The paramedics come to check him. He left his knee on that man's neck. They had him where he was unconscious, unresponsive, no pulse. They put him on a gurney, still handcuffed with his hands behind his back. But we look at that as a means of being okay. Why? Because it was a police officer doing it. But the context of it, of the story that I saw this morning, was the only way this stops is if those that aren't affected are just as upset about this type of action as those that are affected. And the person that said that was Benjamin Franklin. And I constantly tell people, if we are putting these people in these positions, and these people are volunteering to be in these positions, why can we not hold them accountable for the duties of that position? Why is it that we have to accept what they're giving us if it's not what it's supposed to be from those positions? Why is it that we are expected to overlook and be okay with what they're doing? Because most people need the concept or their ideals to remain that police are good people. They need their ideals to remain that, you know what, it's okay because that guy must have done something wrong. And then even when you see that that person did nothing wrong, you still look for an excuse for the police officer to be right. Because keep in mind, Had those people not uploaded those videos, had those people not been on live, had those people not had those videos shared, these police officers, because remember, the video I did talked about only 2 of them being put on administrative duty. They were still being paid. Just like the man that was in Arizona that pulled a gun on a child and said, "I'll blow your effing brains out," on a trial for stealing a $1 doll. These people were put on administrative duty. That man earned another $40,000 while he waited for a decision, and then he still was able to keep his pension. He will still be allowed to get another job. And what happens is, for me, is the context of understanding why would someone think that's okay. And then I go into the ideals of, you know what, because it's not affecting you. If it doesn't affect you, it doesn't really resonate. Because I even tell people, because they often ask, why don't I have more followers? Why don't you have more followers? Why don't you have more followers? I understand it's because I'm giving you something. You know what? Because restaurants, the number one restaurant isn't making as much as McDonald's. I'm going to say that the number one restaurant is not making as much as McDonald's. Everybody wants something that's fast food. Everybody wants instant. I don't give you anything instant. Everything I give you has something that tails on because it allows you to grow with it. I'm not trying to shove 20 hours of stuff down your throat in 10 minutes. Because if I did that, you would never have an opportunity to understand anything. I give you these long ass stories to basically kind of fill a little bit of air, for one, but 2, it offers you an opportunity to see what it is that I'm saying. So when I talk about the grand jury, I talk about the true bill, I talk about the indictment. As you see things happening, as we go along, you then see other pieces of the puzzle. You go deeper into the matrix. You get a greater understanding. And now, I'm going to give you what a true bill is. A true bill is the endorsement made on a bill of indictment by a grand jury certifying it to be supported by sufficient evidence to warrant committing the accused to trial. Say that one more time. It warrants committing the accused to trial. And it serves as evidence. Remember, you don't have to have any real evidence to actually get an indictment or a true bill. You just have to have an agreement and a good story. In a grand jury, there is no opposition. However, the accused has an opportunity to testify at it. Most of the time, they don't know that there's a grand jury being convened because they don't have to. Because that itself is just a secret part or a secret tool of the prosecution. And again, it's part of the machine. And that's what people have to grasp. The context of the machine of getting you to believe that what they're saying and doing is correct. They're making sure it is solidified in everything that is being said in front of you. It's also set there to convince everyone else that this is what it has to be. And the trick to the true bill is to have everyone sign off on it. It's not the matter has to be dismissed or the prosecutors have to take another shot at it. The goal of the grand jury is to get the true bill, is to get the 16 or 23 people to agree that this is something. Because if they don't have to announce that they've already tried this before with 16 or 23 other people. They don't have to announce that this has been done once and been rejected twice or however many times. They just have to get it done one time. Because I equate it to a score. And one of the things about it, when I played basketball, I will go down and I missed a shot. my coach would always tell me, have a short memory. Said because no matter what happens, you have to trust the practice. In trusting the practice, you also have to understand that that last shot didn't go in. You have to set up to make sure this next shot does go in. You have to shoot it as if you made your last shot. You have to have just as much confidence on this shot as you did your last one, if not even more. And a lot of times, that's what a prosecutor's doing. They're going to take as many shots as necessary to get the score. And in this case, the true bill. Because if they don't, they have to start over. But the easy is they don't have to submit real evidence. They're submitting what it is that they have at the time. And they're using it in a story form. And even in defending Jacob, the one thing he does is he actually has something because it's written like a Scorsese movie. And they're going from one time to another time and then back to the middle, back to the end, and then back to the beginning. And you kind of lose context if you're not paying attention. Because when I realized this is what it was doing, I was on episode 4. So I had to go back to episode 1 to understand that they're telling the story from the end. They're offering the grand jury from the end. But they're also giving you bits and pieces of how it is that they're doing in their tactics. Because I'm actually going to go into another podcast where I talk about how they're using tactics to dehumanize someone to actually present to the jury and allow them to think of someone as not a person, but as a thing, as a criminal, as someone that is evil, someone that has done wrong. And while it's legal, and it's actually a tactic that we took away in the trial, because as long as it's not being done, you have an opportunity to go home. But just like G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle. These are things that are known. Because I tell you that people want someone to blame. We constantly use the name of John Melvin. We didn't refer to the state or Georgia or whatever. We use John Melvin. John Melvin did this. John Melvin said that. John Melvin, John Melvin, John Melvin, John Melvin. They never called us defendants. They referred to us by name or the accused. They never referred to us as defendants. Because again, defendant in most people's mind means criminal. The accused means there's an accusation. You got to see something. You got to have something built upon. And those little idiosyncrasies allowed the mind to expand. Because again, human nature tells you one thing because words have power. We took words and we gave power to others. And even in this sense, they talked about how not to say the person on trial's name, how to connect with the jury. Those are great things because not only did we do that, we made references to the jury when we were talking. We made eye contact with the jury while we were cross-examining people. We even made jokes and we directed them towards the jury. Because these are things and tactics that we know the prosecution is going to do. And it's about the story. Because often the case is going after several times until the prosecutor gets the results they want. And it goes into the issue most have with prosecutorial discretion, which is cherry picking who they will and won't prosecute. And that is one of the downfalls of our legal system. Because if we're going to decide who we prosecute simply by what they can pay, what they're wearing, where they were located at, who they know, then we don't have a legal system. And justice is peaking. And if Lady Justice is peaking, we cannot have a non-biased adjudication. And if we don't have non-biased adjudication, we cannot move forward in the things that we're trying to do as a whole. So, I'm going to leave you on that one for this first commercial break. Take it in. Take a deep breath. I want you to think about something. I want you to think about this. If the grand jury itself is something that is set up that does not require evidence, how is it something that is allowed to be submitted as evidence during, before, or in the retrospects of a trial? So, here's our first commercial break. Welcome back, everybody. Now, we've got one more commercial, so I hope you guys don't get too distracted by that. But I'm actually go deeper into the grand jury and defending Jacob, and the reason why I want to get into that. Because one of the important things is to understand that I'm teaching purposeful things for the most part. Because the whole mindset is to actually not only be prepared for court, but to be prepared to actually fight and win. And it's understanding simple notions, understanding simple principles. One of those principles being understanding the fact that you will lose a couple of battles. But the mindset is to actually stay focused on winning the war. The war is actually getting the verdict that you're looking for, as in most cases, not guilty, or getting your case dismissed, or if it's a civil matter, getting something that you want. Because in many of the civil cases that I've done, I've gotten what I wanted. Now, is it great every time? No. A couple times it was just shit. But at the end of the day, I got what I wanted out of it. And a couple of cases, I got more than I wanted out of it. But the whole point is I had an idea or a level of justice. And even when doing that, I understood the tactics that were going to be set in front of me. I understood the traps that were being set. Because I often talk about how this is chess, not checkers. And for those that don't play chess, one of the things that people do whenever they are considered chess masters is they'll set traps for you. Generally, those are people that are very skilled at it, and they're probably practicing something. But they'll set a trap for you. Because just in case they respect you as an adversary. They know that at some point you're going to give away what you're trying to do. Their thing is to then change their game plan, or maneuver, or alter, or allow it to adapt to your surrounding. The great thing I love about even practicing law is that a lot of times I can equate it back to whenever I played basketball. I even equate it back to people I watched play basketball, or even coaches. One of my favorite coaches was Phil Jackson. Now, a lot of people did not think that Phil was very good at coaching, and he inherited Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. But people forget that Doug Collins also had a very similar team with Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, and Michael Jordan, and they were not winning. They were not beating the Pistons. They were not getting beyond the Eastern Conference Finals. Phil takes over pretty much the same crew, add one or two extra players, and then he wins 3 championships with these guys. Mike retires, comes back. They're still competitive with just Scottie. But then he has to retool because Paxson has retired. Horace Grant has gone to the Orlando Magic. So now he brings in Michael Rodman, and instead of Paxson, he now has Steve Kerr from the San Antonio Spurs. So the thing is, he continued to apply a system. He adapted to what was going on, and he allowed the things around him, or the people around him, to be great at what they do. And that's the one thing that you have to do. And I always talk about trusting oneself. And the mindset of a great leader is someone that can delegate. And that is a difficult thing, because in delegation, you have to lean on somebody with their strength. But you also have to trust yourself that they will get the job done. And most of the time you hear people that'll micromanage. And the reason they're micromanaging is because they don't trust themselves. It's not that they don't trust the person that they delegated it to. They don't trust themselves. And the thing is, I was one of those people at one point. I wanted to touch everything. I had to write every motion. I had to oversee every step of it. I had to go and file everything. And then I realized I'm not effective that way. I'm effective if I can get the motion done and I can give somebody instructions on how to file it. That's where I'm effective at. Because even going through this, it's understanding what it was I was looking at. So my strength wasn't filing. My strength wasn't doing all this extra stuff. My strength was setting up the picture. And what most prosecutors do, they understand that they're not going to win because they understand the principles of police don't do proper policing 90% of the time. It's a really high number. And that's why you see often them getting upset because someone that has murdered someone, that you know they've murdered someone, they get to go home because the chain of custody was broken. Or they weren't able to intimidate this person into taking a deal. Because you often hear me, I actually did a post, I want to say about a week ago. Because someone spoke to me about the enemy of my enemy. Because we were actually getting ready to do something. And it was against someone I didn't like. So it was the enemy of my enemy. And he quoted the movie, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." I told him, I said, no. The enemy of my enemy is a tool that I use to destroy both of them. That's it. Now, when you're talking about this, the enemy of my enemy in this scenario would be the grand jury indictment. Because the grand jury indictment, as I told you, most of the time they're not using real evidence to submit it or to even get it. They're telling a story. And generally, it's done by somebody that's a good storyteller. Someone that is very charismatic. Someone that you want to believe. Someone that is confident. I want to say that again. Someone that makes you want to believe them. Someone that they can say something that you didn't know. And then you go, oh, wow, that person's smart. So now they give you that something that allows you to believe that they are great at what they do. Or they are better at it than they are ever at, actually. Because a lot of times we give others credit for things that they shouldn't get credit for. But that grand jury indictment not only is a tool that I use against my enemies, it's a tool that the enemies use against me. But it is not for me. I'm going to say that one more time. They use it as a tool against me. And in this case, you substitute yourself. The me in this scenario is you. It is a tool that is used against you. But it's not for you. It's for the convincing of these 12 jurors. Because you got to keep in mind, one of the things that I often talk about, more often than not, is the fact that any battle that was done for good and evil, a lot of people think, oh, you're going for your soul, going for the soul. No. Every battle for good and evil is for your decision-making ability. It's for your mind. Because whatever decisions you make, whether it's listening to the good angel or listening to the bad angel, you're making a decision that allows somebody else to manipulate or dictate to you what they're looking to do. And that's what a grand jury indictment is. It's a tool to go after your mindset. And just like I talked about earlier, it's one of the things that they use where I think mine was maybe 9 pages or something like that. But in the indictment, they never mentioned me by name. And I'm going to actually go back because I'm going to give you another kind of gloss over. One of the things that was really big, and probably about 1.5 years ago, and it was the indictment of Robert Mueller, not sure how to say his name, but it was the Mueller report. And in his report, he spoke about individual one. He never gave anybody names. And the reason why he didn't give anybody any names in that scenario is because he did not want to give a human effect to it. Because just to give you an idea of how that works, I told you that even in our trial, they were not allowed to call us anything other than our names or the accused. One of the things that most people didn't notice, but I had somebody send it to me, Robert Shapiro, when he was defending George Zimmerman, used the exact same tactic. The only difference was instead of 12 jurors, he moved to have 6 jurors. And in doing so, what he did, he humanized George Zimmerman. Because when they polled the jurors afterwards, all of them referred to him as George or Mr. Zimmerman. These are things that humanize. It makes it more difficult for them to convict someone they can relate to. I'm going to say that one more time. It's more difficult to convict someone that they can relate to. And the meaning of that is the simple fact that the more human someone is, the more likely they are to be going home. It's not only a tactic that you should employ, but it's one that will be used against you. Because if you start going over your documents when you do discovery, and you're going over each form of paperwork, you'll note that your name is written, and then afterwards, every time they're referring to you as something other than who you are. And then they get you to agree that you are something less than your name. I'm going to say that one more time. Then they get you to sign that you are less than who you are. And if you don't sign it, they use intimidation tactics to make you agree to it. Now, I called it Gestapo tactics. I use bullying. I use those mindsets and time frames and all that good stuff. But again, that's where conversation comes in at. Because these bastards are stupid enough to write this down when you refuse. They will write down they obligated you to do so. They will write down that they threatened you to do so. They will write this down because they've been doing wrong so long, they think it's okay. Because I actually had an incident where an officer was attempting to give me a citation. I cracked up laughing because I told him, I said, no, I'm not going to sign it. And he goes, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I said, oh, okay, so you are telling me I do not have the right to remain private. And he got quiet. Hey, well, no. I said, according to you, your defense of the Constitution is you're telling me I don't have a right to not participate in your investigation. I don't have to accept something you're giving me. And if you're telling me that I have to, then that you are actually, and I think I actually used the words, you're participating in involuntary servitude. The funniest part about that is both of us had the same color skin. Both of us was dark skinned. And it was funny because the look that was on his face. He never understood the context of forcing someone to be something. He never understood the context. Now, going into that, if I sign it, it's a violation. Why? Because one, it's a Fourth Amendment violation because he's restricting my ability to do something or not do something. And he's offering instructions without a crime. That's one. The second part of that is forcing a signature. It automatically voids the contract that I'm signing. Because any form of extortion or coercion voids the contract. And anytime you're using your signature for something as a guarantee for anything, and it is forced, it is no longer an obligation because you have lost your free will. Notice the mind was tacked into that. Because again, even something as simple as signing a citation is an obligation to go after your mindset. Because again, it's a tool used for intimidation. It's a tool to lessen you. It's a tool to make you believe the things that are going on are correct, even though you have written, documented court cases that tell you the truth. Most people will easily believe the lie because it's less intrusive and it's less complicated. Because here's the thing, they'll believe the lie before they'll believe the truth. I'm going to say that to you. They'll believe the lie before they believe the truth. That's why the lie gets around the world twice as fast as the truth. Because nobody cares about the truth. All they care about is perception. They're looking to get along. And whenever I tell you, the majority of people that are born and they are followers, not leaders. There are way more followers than there are leaders. The reason being is because it's easy to walk behind somebody and look for somebody to blame for your inadequacies. I'm going to say it properly. It's easier to walk behind someone and then blame them for your inadequacies. Simply because no one wants to accept responsibility for anything they do anymore. It's always someone else's fault. Now, that is the reason why they've made it popular to show the orange is the new black. Why? Because they're programming you that orange means criminal. Orange, if you're in an orange jumpsuit, you are a criminal. Because back in the day, if you remember, if you were in a striped jumpsuit, that meant criminal. If you wore a mask, that meant you were a bad guy. You were a bandit. Now they don't use that. They use words like crook, sovereign citizen. And they use other things that don't allow for you to continue to be intelligent or even question what they want you to believe as their authority. These things are detrimental not only to us, but it's actually detrimental to them. Because I asked the question, and it was funny because to watch it being asked, or a similar question being asked on someone else's channel, the context of the responses was hilarious to me. The question was asked, if police had authority and they were working for the police department and not the citizens, what happens if there are no citizens? Are they still police officers? And if so, who are they policing? Because we know they don't police one another. That question on somebody else's platform blew their minds. This guy has about 4,000 people that's actively in his chat every time he logs on. And it's funny because all of them had trouble giving a real answer. Because they don't understand the context. They're programmed to believe that police are something else, or authoritarians or authority figures, when in fact they're servants. Now, I even asked the police officer, I said, okay, if you're a servant, right? I said, you are in a position of service. The problem that I have is the context of you have an expectation of respect. And he goes, yes. And I asked him, why do you command that respect? He said, because I put on a uniform every day and I put my life on the line. I said, great. Here's the question. I said, what are you doing to make sure everybody's well-being is taken care of? He goes, I take bad guys off the street. I said, okay, great. How many bad guys have you taken off the street? And he goes, well, I've taken hundreds off. I said, have you written tickets for jaywalking? He started laughing. He said, yeah, I wrote a couple. I said, were they bad guys? He's like, well, you know, that's a little different. I said, but did anybody go to jail from a citation that you gave me? He goes, yeah. I said, were they bad guys? He's like, but you know, I said, no. Were they bad guys? Because again, you said your benefit and respect that you're looking for is for bad guys. What bad guys have you taken? But then he goes back and goes, well, I had a domestic violence situation. I said, okay, let's add that. That's a bad guy, right? Let's say that's the bad guy. Boom. How many of those do you have? He said, probably about 10. So how many tickets have you written? He said, man, I've probably written a few thousand. I said, so you got a few thousand people that are not bad guys versus 10. I said, now, are you doing more good or are you doing more harm? Dude got quiet. He took a deep breath. And then he was like, well, I still, because this can happen. Okay, great. Because I always give people, whenever they give me that, I should this, I should that. And I ask myself, okay, you want me to give you respect for something and you're not doing anything that's respectful. That's one. I said, then two, you're telling me that you're afraid to do your job properly because of something that might possibly, and not happening. I said, here's the great part about that. I said, because I got a friend, John. John is in Atlanta. John is still a cop. He's been a cop for at least 25 years. John has been shot twice. Both on traffic stops. Both from just minute ass bullshit. Just literally just minute stuff. John still gets out. He smiles. He treats everyone with respect. Even the irate assholes that he encounters. Why? Because yes, 95% of the people that you encounter on a daily basis are knuckleheads. They are shorties on this, on that. Yes, that's who they encountering. But he still remembers there's 5% of those people that have sense. There are 5% of those people that actually need him. There are 5% of those people that he has to represent for. He has to go in and be dignified and have integrity on each and every stop. These are the things that people don't want to recognize. John has been a police officer for more than 25 years. He has one civilian complaint on him, and it was within his first 5 years. And if you go back and remember, the time that people do most of their fuck shit is the first 5 and after 9. He is yet to get into anything after 9. Why? Because he's been shot twice after 9. First thing he does is not grab his gun. Because John is not afraid to do his job. John does not expect respect, but he gives it anyway. So therefore, it's a reciprocation of what he's giving. And then I talked to the young man about how he goes out. And his first tactic is to stick his chest out and put his hand on his gun. And I asked him, I said, do you not think that will be intimidating to certain people? And he goes, well, that's how I'm comfortable. I said, okay, cool. I said, are you comfortable like that with your wife? And he laughed. He was like, well, no. I said, why would you not do it with your wife, but you would do that with everybody else? You wouldn't want anybody doing that to your wife, but you'll do that with everybody else. And it was just like the same conversation I had with the man after we played ball. I asked him, okay, if it's easy to do one thing now, is it okay for them to do it to your child? Someone else do it to your child? And he was like, no, not at all. But why would you go out there and do that? Why would you allow that tactic to be used? But then you get upset when someone calls it into question. Then you get upset when someone uses that same exact tactic on you or someone that you care about. And again, these tactics, when you're doing that, the reason they're not going after their buddies whenever you have these type of situations is simply because of this. Piranha don't eat piranha. Because I even gave a young lady this example last night. It was an easy scenario for me. So you look at a lake. The lake can be perfectly still, right? Until some other animal touches the lake. Then everybody pounces on it. And she goes, well, I get it, but why would you use that scenario? Because I hired an attorney. I said, okay, great. I said, the person that's defending you has a bar card. So yes. I said, the person that's prosecuting you has a bar card. Yes. The person that's allowing or adjudicating in your case or matter has a bar card. So yes. I said, who in that scenario does not have a bar card? And she goes, me. I said, again, you're the prey. You're disturbing the water in the lake. Piranha don't eat piranha. They eat everything else that touched the lake. Now, here's the scenario, the reason why I did that. Because I tell people this is a generation. A revenue generation monster. That's all it is. Has nothing to do with law. It has everything to do with revenue. Now, This young lady, she talked about how she had a court date. She paid this attorney. Attorney didn't show up to court, but she did. She gets into court, and they give her an option for paying. And she's like, no, I'm actually going to fight this. Then she starts looking at paperwork that the DA hands her. Her lawyer filed a motion and didn't argue the motion, didn't have any substance with the motion, just filed a motion that was damn near blank. And then didn't show up to argue the motion. Didn't tell her about the motion. And then when she called about the motion, took days to return her phone call. Now keep in mind, this is someone she paid. Then when the phone call was returned, she was then told, just pay the fine. Her response was, why pay the fine if I've already paid you and I wanted to fight? Because again, retaining an attorney for most of these cases, if you're going to pay a fine, the attorney is probably going to be more than the fine. So let's keep it real. There's a reason that you were paying for that attorney. Now, I'm going to get into a context of that as well. But actually, I'll go ahead and get into it right now. Because if you're paying someone, they're an employee. And if an employee does not perform properly, you fire them. Now, in the context of this situation, I told her, I said, you either tell them to offer you a refund, or you have them to do everything correctly. Simply because you gave them a job to do, they're not doing it sufficiently, and they're not doing it the way you instructed them to do it. These are things that fall under ineffectiveness of counsel. But you also have to understand, this is also partnerships and tactics. Why? Not for going to trial, but for a plea bargain. I'm going to say that again. They're doing this even when you're paying them. They're doing things to generate revenue, because it's not for going to trial. It's going to get a plea bargain. Similar situation. I had a young lady that I spoke with. Her attorney is at Sudlow and Sudlow here in Houston. The funniest thing is, this young lady told her, while I was sitting on the phone, I almost peed on myself laughing. She told her, she said, hey, have I gotten my motion for discovery from February? She goes, no, we'll probably get it the day before trial. And I asked, I said, why is that? She goes, well, discovery is discretionary. The judge may or may not allow it. My question to her was, when did due process become discretionary? When has that been an option? Because according to Texas code, for discovery, 39.14, it has to be done immediately. I said, in the making of a choice to not allow it to be done immediately says that you're working with the prosecution and not for your client, which means that not only can they be held accountable for it, but you can be held accountable for it by ineffectiveness of counsel for not allowing your client the best representation and allowing them to not follow the rules of due process. And here's the great part about it. I didn't have to use a Supreme Court case. I used their rules. Because remember, I constantly tell you, if a state quote-unquote organic code does not coincide with a federal statute or a Supreme Court decision, it is not valid according to the selective incorporation doctrine, right? That is the doctrine. And then goes under the doctrine of precedence. So if it doesn't follow that, it's not valid. Well, that code, 39.14 in the Texas Organic Criminal Code, follows the Freedom of Information Act, because there must be things that are made available immediately in discovery. Why? Because they must follow due process. But again, those are things that they're using as a tactic for revenue generation. These are reasons why I talk about how you must take control of you. Even if you hire someone else, you must still understand you are still the boss. You are the employer, not the employee. You are the one that controls this. They do not control you. You must understand there's a time and place, and there's a method for doing what is supposed to be done properly. This is something that you must always be in the midst of practicing. Because if you don't control you, somebody else will be glad to do so. These things are all part of the ultimate goal of having you, one, in fear, intimidated, coerced to cut a check, to become inconvenienced. Because just like we were talking about yesterday, and I'm going to get back on subject in a minute. Yesterday, there was a young man that that's with the Minnesota, well, actually, the young man that was killed by the Minnesota Police Department. And what happened was you had a lot of people standing around. They were filming and they were talking. And they watched as George Floyd pretty much stopped breathing. These officers thought it was okay. The context of this is the understanding that when I spoke about 2 officers being put on administrative duty or administrative leave while, still getting paid. The problem is when 4 of them got sued or got fired, there's a police union that continues to allow this type of conduct to go on and go unpunished. Because the main officer that was in this, that did the kneeling on George Floyd's neck, had been involved in multiple police shootings. He's been on the force for 19 years. He had been involved in multiple lawsuits. He's been involved in multiple excessive force violations. You also see the young Asian man that's there. He, again, is a recipient of the police union simply because he himself had been involved in multiple excessive force complaints and lawsuits, and they're continued to be allowed to work. The problem is the people, whenever they're suing them improperly because they're suing them as Officer Tao, Officer Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, or if I mispronounce his name, oh well. But these guys are being sued improperly. So they're being sued with the guise and protection of qualified immunity. Because remember, once they violate, they are no longer Officer whatever, or Officer Tao, Officer Chavez. They are Derek Chauvin. And Tao. I'm not going to try his first name. But when you watch this, I spoke about how they were in the midst of pretty much allowing this to go on. The policy itself, the only reason these guys were fired immediately, one, is because there was public outcry. But then 2, only because the video had been shared almost 1 million times in one day. A Facebook video had been shared almost 1 million times in one day. And the policy itself does not allow for someone to sit by and watch. Why? Because the first job of a police officer is the preservation of life. I want to say that one more time. The first job of a police officer is the preservation of life. They are to work towards the benefit of the public. The problem that we have is the disconnect. Because while you sat there and watched the video and you listened, they spoke about how Derek Chauvin was dehumanizing George Floyd. How Tao did not want anybody to record it. How Tao continued to be aggressive towards the bystanders. And what gets me is the fact that more people were outraged, but very few people want to do anything about it. I'm going to say that one more time. There were a lot of people that were outraged. There is a very few that actually wanted to do anything about it. Because you have a lot of these keyboard warriors. You have these people that just want to talk about it, that just want to tweet about it, that just want to, make podcasts and videos about it. But they don't want to give you anything that allows you to go forward and be better. They don't want to arm you to where you're able to go out and be productive. Me, I tell everybody, the problem I have is I'm still angry about a lot of stuff. Because I look at how easily this can go left. And the problem I have with that is the fact that I still have young children. And I look at the aggressiveness level. I look at how they manipulate. I look at how they press forward and expect. They live with an expectation that's unreal. And the reason it's unreal is because it's unearned. And what I look at whenever I see this, I look at the fact that you have poorly trained officers that are very few trained on the law, very few actually understand how to follow instructions, and then you have an IQ level that is cut off on most of these issues, right? The problem is we hold them with an expectation that they're going to do the right thing. We hold them at an expectation that they're going to be honorable. And the problem is 90% of them that we're looking at aren't. Simply because you're looking at something that's more destined for revenue generation. Because what makes people popular now? Conflict and ignorance. So what do? You have some, I always tell people, because I'm going to get back on subject. But it'll probably be after the break. But I always tell people, the one thing that people get upset about is the simple fact that you constantly see these people that are doing horrible things. And they go to jail for a year or two, they come back. Go to jail for a year or two, come back. Go to jail for a year or two, they come back. And then all of a sudden, that's their life. That's what they do. And they are the people that you expect them to be in jail. Like, they don't understand how to live outside of jail because all they know is jail. And then most of the time you look like, hold on, how did this dude murder somebody and get 5 years? Because just like I told everybody, I said the one thing that pissed me off during my trial was the simple fact that we were on trial for pretty much teaching people. It wasn't because of no real shit. Because all the shit that they put in the newspaper was for everybody else. Had nothing to do with us because none of that was brought up during the trial. But there was a man that was down the hall. He had murdered 3 random ass people. Now, I'm going to give you the deal they brought to me. They offered us a deal of 20 years per count. 20 years per count. Let's just say there was more than 2 counts. All right, let's call it that. 20 years per count. That was the deal. For 2 counts of RICO and conspiracy to commit racketeering and all this other foolishness. So, 20 years per count. That was the deal. Now we go down the hall. This dude was on trial for triple murder. He killed 3 people. Now, let me give you some real shit. The context of it was he killed 3 random ass people. He was convicted. Guess how much time he got? I just want you to understand, because the deal for me and my brothers was 20 years per count. They was trying to have us missing. That was going to be the end of our life, because we were going to spend the rest of it in this existence in a prison cell. That's what they wanted. This young man went out and killed 3 random ass people, got 15 years. That's 5 years per body, and he only has to serve 60% of that time, which means he gets out in 9 years? He's up for parole in 9 years? And you look at this, and it's like, okay, what in the hell? What's more dangerous? What's more detrimental? Taking someone's life or teaching someone how to be better? They were more concerned with the person that was teaching people how to be better and how to not go into the system and follow through all this BS, right? They wanted, because see, again, that's what I'm teaching now. I am teaching you to, if you want to fight, because I had to drag a few people last time, and I learned my lesson. Because if I gotta drag you to the fight, you don't want to fight, and I'm not gonna fight for you. I've done that. Been there, done that, bought a t-shirt, and 13 of them motherfuckers tried to testify against me. It's cool. Keep it where it's at. We're going to keep it a buck. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm not with that. If I got to drag you to the fight, we're not fighting. I'm throwing in the towel for you. Because that's where I'm biased at. I don't feel like I go to work for anybody else to hand them my money. My money is for my house and my little ones. That's it. My house, my little ones. That's it. I'm not working to give it to somebody else. Now, if I do something wrong, yeah, I got to pay for that. If I harm someone, yes, I got to pay for that. But you're not going to hand me a jaywalking ticket and not expect me to, you know what? We're going to have a conversation with your parents, because I'm not going to do this dumb shit. Because at the end of the day, there's levels to this shit, and I don't do that. I'm going to get on my level, because at the end of the day, there is a right and a wrong way for policing. Doing it the wrong way gets me talking to your parents. It gets me tapping those pockets. But I understand the methods and tactics they're going to use to try to intimidate me. I know they're going to threaten me. I know they're going to say things to me. I know they're going to give me these bullshit deals. And, oh, if you don't take it, I'm going to ask for the max. Yeah, you can ask for it. Problem is, you got to beat me first. You can ask for whatever you want to ask for. You still got to beat me. And it was like, one day I had this young boy. It was funny as shit. He and I was in the gym just shooting around. This was actually in my younger days. We went run and shoot. And only real ballers gonna know what I'm talking about when I say run and shoot. But we went run and shoot, and me and the young boy, we was hooping around or whatever, and I was just kind of goofing off or whatever. So his dad comes over, and I don't know if you know, but back in the day, they used to call me Little Penny. And Little Penny was a guy that talked a lot of trash, and he would not stop. That was my nickname, because I talked trash to any and everybody all the time, nonstop. Didn't care if we were up 20 or down 20. You never knew with me, because I was still talking trash. Well, he comes over, he getting a little serious, so I started talking trash to him. Because, again, we were just sitting over there warming up, chilling out, me and the son. So he goes, well, let's play. How much you want to play for? He said, you named the number. I said, okay, let's play for $1,000. Now, keep in mind, back in the day, run and shoot, I used to be in there with Chris Whitney, Darryl Armstrong, Shannon Anderson, Willie Anderson. You know, I can go through a list of names. Robert Harrington. All these guys that played in the NBA. So they used to play $1,000 a head. So I would be in there and I would play in these games. So I had to have a G on me. Now, the thing was, so when I said that, he goes, oh, well, what are you doing? I said, yeah, that's my rent money. Let's call it. Oh, you walk around with your rent money. And then he turns around, looks at his son, and goes, see, that's what happens when guys don't want to play. I said, well, you give me a number. I said, hell, we can even, I said, you could give my boy your I said, how much can you withdraw from the ATM? He said, $500. I said, all right, we'll play for $500. Give my boy your card and your PIN number. And so he hands it to him. I hand dude $500. I go out there, and he turns around. He goes, can he play? My boy laughed at him. He said, you didn't notice the tattoo on his arm? And the funniest part about it was when I lit his ass up, I didn't shake his hand. And I told him, I said, you might want to stop talking trash to everybody, especially when you don't know what they do. And I told him, I said, I get paid for this. That's why I walk around with a G in my pocket. But at the end of the day, it's understanding the tactics. I knew everything because he was one of those people with the TV game. And basically what I call a TV game is a game where people, they trying to emulate what they think they're seeing. And it's like when you take a child somewhere and then the child goes to mimic you. That's what they see you looking like in their head. And TV gang, I know what you're getting ready to do. I know what you're getting ready to try. Why? Because I watch TV too. The problem is mine is done with a skill set. Yours is done with imagination. That's the same thing with these tactics because they're not following law. I know law. I live law. I practice law. Understand that. This is what I do. I don't, as Deontay White said, I don't play law. I get in there and I'll anaconda you because I'll put you in a chokehold. Because my whole premise is to make sure I Tupac you. Because I want to kill you breathing. That is it. Because I want you to live what it is that you're trying to make me. Because at the end of the day, what we have before us is something that's special. We have an opportunity and we're in an information age. The information is free. But what we have to do is be able to decipher that information and then be able to apply it. Now, when I come back on this last half, I'm going to help you do something. Because again, it becomes not only about defending Jacob. It comes not only about the grand jury. And it's not only about the tactics that they're using. But it also goes into your application, your acceptance, your views, and your feelings. And yes, I do mean feelings on this because your feelings in this case is very necessary for what's needed to go beyond where you are right now. So this is the last commercial break and I'll see you guys on the other side. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and coming back. Well, this is actually going to be the last leg of this podcast for defending Jacob. Simply because I just wanted to give you an introduction to the grand jury. I wanted to offer you a direction or a purpose or even a little bit of context of what a grand jury is and what business it serves and how it affects you. And I want to make sure there's a understanding. Part of that understanding is I want you to understand that a grand jury proceeding is not a trial. That's why they don't use evidence, or they use pretty much a storytelling style. Because prosecutors weaponize words and illustrate the one thing I've said over and over again. I've actually done a video about it. That words have power. Because when you see someone in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and even 50s that can't spell the word probably, that's a problem. When you see grown people that are out in this world that are affected by the legal shit, the legal aspects of life, and they're held to a standard of understanding, and they have no idea of context. They can't form sentences without abbreviations because now they've dumbed down the world with text messages and emojis where you're using, instead of saying hit me up, you're using HMU. When you can't even fill out a proper application, when you can't even relate basically simple information from one person to the next, and you're told that now you're going to be held responsible for something, they hand you something in regards to that, and you have no idea what that is. They're using the indictment as an intimidation tactic to make you settle. They're using the indictment as a means of making you not challenge them. They're using the indictment as a means of mind control. Because when you're looking at it, it's based solely on their words and their vision of what they see a problem is, or what they're looking for as the solution to an issue. The reason why a lot of us are upset because we don't understand the goings and comings of the grand jury. We're sitting down and we're watching as people commit blatant crimes on television in front of the world, and we're wondering, well, how were they not indicted? Why were they not indicted? And the simple reason is because no one wanted them indicted. You look at something as simple as the McMichaels. Not only were they not charged for 3 months, but their actions were excused for 3 months by multiple district attorneys for whatever reason. Their actions was excused beyond what everybody understood. And even their own words went against the very statute that they're using as a defense. But because their friends didn't want them indicted, because they're looking at the facts that it was okay, and they dehumanized the person that was killed. Their life was taken because they were looked at for something as less than human. They used verbiage that described someone's actions beyond what was on someone's ability to see. And then when those visions were challenged against those words were seen as nothing more than an illusion. It's like David Copperfield. Or, hell, even Chris Angel. They're doing a lot of things that can't be explained, but when you're looking at the context of the indictment itself is the explanation. The indictment itself is something that is used just as a tool. Because just like I spoke about, the enemy of my enemy is not my friend. The enemy of my enemy is just a tool that I'll use to destroy them both. And I constantly tell you, because even in an indictment, you can't argue against you. Because we call those people crazily or mentally broken. Because again, they're mentally ill because they're expecting an answer from themselves that's different from the one that they gave. You're having a rational argument with yourself. Did you understand how irrational that sounded? Because when you're sitting there and you're presenting someone with something they actually said, something they actually wrote, something that they actually portrayed, and they're arguing against that very thing, why are we not now labeling them as mentally ill? Why are we not labeling them as crazy? Why are we not labeling them as what it is? Liars. Because that's exactly what that is. You're sitting here, you're holding it. You're saying, here it is. You wrote this. Why is it now an issue? Why is it now an issue? Because you said it, so either you were lying then or you're lying now. And oftentimes, that indictment is an embellishment of the truth or an exaggeration, because they have poetic license to move forth and go about this thing that we call a trial in whatever manner they choose to do so. And we have to be okay with it, because again, just like in any other part of the criminal aspect, the civil aspect, the legal aspect, there's this thing called due process. And in due process, it's something that most people, I've actually been told that it was discretionary. And again, I'll go into that because I'm going to have a conversation about that later as well. Because I'm going to do a couple videos about that as well. Because I had a young lady named Ann at Sudlow and Sudlow here in Houston tell me that something that is codified in Texas Organic Code as a requirement is discretionary. Something as simple as discovery is discretionary. according to Miss Ann at Sudlow and Sudlow here in Houston. And they are defense attorneys. It's an illustration of when I talk about piranha don't eat piranha. When I give you the vision of looking at a lake and how still it is, but knowing below the surface that it's full of piranha. They don't act, they don't eat, they don't move until something disturbs that water, and then they all pounce. Because again, all of them are members of the same club. The defense attorney is a bar card member. The prosecutor is a bar card member. The judge is a bar card member. They're all on the same team. You're the one that's not on there. You're the prey. But again, these are the pictures, just as I give you, of what it is that you're up against. These are the exact pictures that are being painted in an indictment. Because that picture is my indictment against the system. Those videos that I do are indictments against the actions of officers. The thing that I show you is the indictment against prosecutors for overreaching and not doing things that are lawful. When we're talking about that, it's the absolute understanding of where it is and how the indictment affects you. When it affects you, that's when it becomes my business. When it affects something that is directly unlawful, that's what I am teaching you. That is my indictment. My indictment is against the system itself when it is flawed. And we know itself to be flawed. The actors within it are flawed. We're looking at police officers that are arresting people for free speech. We're watching police officers arrest news reporters for doing their job, following instructions. And just like I had a young man I was watching, because a lot of people don't like the fact I watch Tommy Sotomayor. Now, just because I watch him, there are a lot of things that he does that helps me out, because good artists borrow, great artists steal. And I'm stealing a lot of his concepts. But what I mean, and the fact is, when he talks, he loves to illustrate fact, to show his side. That's one of the things that I do. He doesn't care about his numbers because he's going to show regardless. That's what I do, because the numbers will come. All the other stuff will come. But the simple fact is that when we're putting it out, we're putting it out for purpose. We're putting it out with substance, because we're making sure you have something that you can eat, that can hold you over to the next time we're up. But it also allows us to be sustainable, or as he used words, tangible. The context of being tangible is something that is not only something you can touch, but something that you can continue to use, because it becomes something intricate. Because I speak about not something that can be done in a minute, but I'm talking about a way of life. I am speaking about a lifestyle. I want you to understand, even when understanding that the context of the indictment is just one part. When I talk about Roe v. Wade, I talk to you about one part. That's why I was broken into 4 different podcasts, because again, the aspects of Roe v. Wade. But it's just one part. I gave you Georgia v. Borden, which again is the actual context of abortion. But most people don't know that, because they get lost in translation because they don't understand how it applies to them. These are the things that I'm giving you. This is how I make myself tangible. These are the things that, again, are indictments against the system, because they're perpetrating propaganda for you. They're pushing an image that they want you to believe, because they want you to get their side. The problem is, when you're giving one side of something, it is very difficult to actually see the forest for the trees. And even with this, because even challenging the indictment, one of the things I was called for challenging the things that were said, because I always tell you, answer everything. They send you an offer, you answer it. Because a lot of times what I do, in my answer, I'll notate their offer. Nobody likes that, because now their offer is on the record. But I want to make sure you understand what it is I'm challenging. And that way there is no confusion, there is no dispute, because that's what I'm answering. I am answering your offer. I am answering your request. I am answering because again, the moving party is the one that's in control. The second you accept something and don't respond, you've lost. Because now you've given control away simply by being quiet. And those are the times that you need to be speaking up. Those are the times that you need to be moving forward. Those are the times that you need to say something. Not when you're standing in the street and you want to holler and scream to an idiot that have no clue what you're talking about. Because I can't tell you this individual isn't intelligent and then get upset because this individual isn't intelligent. I can't tell you that they're hiring low IQ people and then get upset because I'm encountering one of these low IQ bastards. You can't have court in the street. You can't have I always call it the temper tantrum. This is where you need to exercise. The encounter is that's the first place. It's like going to the gym. The encounter is you walking into the gym. Now it's time to exercise. You can tell them whatever it is you like. The problem is they're probably not going to understand it. Because just like I know, they're not being trained this way. They're not being taught law. That's why, again, they don't have the ability to think. That's left up to you and a judge. And if they act outside of that, then you hit their pockets and you let no one slide. Because if they're doing it to you, they're doing it to others. If you want to correct the behavior, you correct the goddamn behavior. You don't want to allow it to slide through just because. Well, it was minor. Well, how many minor accidents does someone get? Because if I keep grabbing the corner of the paper and I keep getting the paper cut, then do I keep grabbing the paper by the edge? Do I keep sliding my finger alongside of it just because it's minor? Because if I get enough minor cuts, I'm going to die. I'm going to bleed to death. Then everything that I do becomes for none. Now, it's understanding. One of the things they also often use in the fact, and I'm glad I actually just used the words paper cut, is because I use a method that I learned from a defense attorney. And it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And what that is, it's the challenge. Because a lot of people use this thing called an omnibus motion. Where you'll have several motions written on one motion. You'll have several challenges written on one, pretty much in one package. You'll have your discovery. You'll have your speedy trial. You'll have all these things that are set up. You'll have your entry of appearance. You'll have all of that, but it'll be one motion. Or you'll enter each one of these motions. Set each one of these motions for hearing individually. Why? Because now, and only now, is when the pressure starts. Now, when I did each motion individually. I was called a paper terrorist. Oh, I'm a paper terrorist. Now, here's the funnier part. Went through this whole context where I think I submitted like 8 or 9 motions. And then they were using the words on TV. Oh, he's a paper terrorist. He's a paper terrorist. He's a paper terrorist. And then they hand me 1,000 sheets of paper. I can't make this up. 1,000 sheets of paper for discovery. But I was the paper terrorist. I had 20 sheets of paper at best. They handed me 1,000. There is no exaggeration. They literally sent damn near 50 or 500 times the amount of paper I sent. But I was the terrorist. They sent me so much paperwork and did not send the things I asked for. To where they actually brought up the fact that they had committed a Brady violation. John Melvin literally said, oh, it's not a Brady violation because of this. No, it's a Brady violation because it's codified. Your rules say you have to do something within 10 days. Your rules. And that's what throws people off. Because even here in Texas, where Miss Ann at Sudlow and Sudlow stated that it was discretionary and the judge had to allow discovery. As a defense attorney, I pointed out the fact that Texas code, organic code, 39.14 stated otherwise. And it used the words immediate. And when it gives you one of those things, just like when you sit in the entry of appearance, it gives you verbiage. Because again, those words have power as well. When you're enforcing those aspects of law, then you're a problem. When you're making them follow their rules, then you're a problem. But again, that's my indictment against them. Because if they're the good guys, why are they hiding anything? I ask these questions because that's a part of my indictment. That's a part of me painting a picture. Because for whatever reason, it perplexes me. Just as I have a loyal following, people that like to listen to me for whatever reason, I have no clue why. I also have a group of people that just want to cheer on the police and say they can do no wrong. And I tell them constantly, if you can't chastise someone, if you only see good in them, and you never see them as a whole, do you really love them? If you're telling them everything they're doing is right, knowing it's wrong, do you really love them? If you're spoiling a child, give you a great example. Are you really guiding that child to how life is by telling that child everything that they're doing is correct when you're the one that's supposed to be teaching them how to do it? When you're telling someone and you're looking at them do something wrong and you don't correct that behavior, you're only enriching or enhancing it. Are you doing them any favors? Are you making it okay? And then I always ask, because again, these are my police apologists that listen. Is it okay for them to do that to your child, your husband, your wife, your daughter? Because it seems to be okay for everybody's son. It seems to be okay for everybody's son. Don't know why. But is it okay for your wife? Is it okay for your daughter? Is it okay for your mother to be in those positions? 99.9% of those people say no. Because just like people made fun of the fact that, oh, well, you can't put your knee on someone's neck and kill them. Although we watched it happen literally on video. We watched it. But you're telling me I didn't see what I see. And then, not only do you not recreate the situation or scenario correctly, but you make fun of it. Your hands aren't behind your back. You don't have your knee in the portion of the neck where it's cutting off someone's oxygen or flow of blood to their brain. That's not where your knee is. And then you're not leaning on it with your weight. But then here's the flip side of that. Here's the flip side. You're going to ignore the fact that what he did not only ignored police policy. You remember I just talked about how they ignored their own rules? And you're the problem by pointing it out? Not the fact that police procedures stated he can do that no longer than 1 minute. Why? Because after 2 minutes, you begin to lose brain cells. Your brain begins to become damaged after 2 minutes. That's why if you're drowning, the first thing they worry about is brain damage when you're underwater more than 2 minutes. It is the exact same thing. So if police procedures say he can't do it for more than 1 minute, and he did it for 8 minutes and 30 seconds, you're still looking for justification for something that he knew and was trained he could not do. Police procedure says the preservation of life is their first duty. You had 3 other officers that not only condoned it, but encouraged it and defended it. I'm going to say that one more time. Not only did you have 3 officers that condoned it by forcing other people not to interfere, by pushing them back, trying to hide their cameras, trying to stand in front of their vision. 3 others. they also encouraged it. And remember, I told you, you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. They did nothing to stop it. They didn't correct his behavior. That's encouragement. That's condoning. That's the exact same thing that happens each and every time you do not hold them accountable for their actions. These are the exact same things I'm talking about. If you're telling them that doing wrong is wrong here and you're okaying it somewhere else, you're part of the problem. You are a problem. And just like somebody asked me, because I'm going to get back on subject in just a second. Somebody asked me why I wasn't participating in any of the riots. I told them, I said, I don't think it's purposeful. I said, because it's easy for somebody to be brave when there's nothing on the line. And they was like, well, we're doing it for George. I said, okay, cool. We're doing it because we're supporting it. Great, I got that. What about the black businesses that were destroyed, if that's what you're doing it for? What's going to happen to those people? Here's the next flip side of that. Here's the other side of it. What about the people that are being killed during these riots that nobody's talking about? What about the young man in Jackson, Mississippi that was just choked by a police officer? Nobody's talking about that. What about Mike Ramos that was just shot by police in Austin? Nobody's talking about that. But they're talking about the destruction. And here's the crazier part. If all these people are going to stay or remain in these cities where they're doing all this destruction, they're the ones that's going to have to rebuild what they've torn up. They're the ones that's going to incur the higher prices. They're the ones that's going to incur the higher insurance. They're the one that's going to incur all these damages that they're doing. Because, again, they have to suffer through the rebuild. And I do mean suffer through because there's no guarantee that these businesses are coming back. And here's the thing that kind of kicked him in the head. I told him, now you look at all these people that's out in these streets, they're rioting, and they're tearing up all these businesses and setting these cop cars on fire and all that. Okay, great. How many of these people are actually going to stand up when it comes time for them to do it in court? How many of these people are going to take deals? And I told him, I said, more than 95% of them will take a deal. None of them are going. The majority are not going to fight. But again, that's what they're standing up for. Because again, their freedom is on the line. Their liberty is on the line. Their job is on the line. None of that mattered during the riots. That wasn't on the line. Now it is. Their paychecks on the line. All that is on the line when they're standing in front of that judge. Are you going to fight then? Because that's who I want to fight with. Because I watched a lot of these brave bastards get up. Oh, Richard, we're going to do this. I had 4 million followers on Periscope right when Periscope first came out. I also had 13 people get on a stand to testify that I did something wrong. I had 13 people that took a deal to say I did something wrong, but none of them could figure out what law they had broken for the deal that they had taken. Because it was easy to say, you know what? I'm going to fight with you when there is no fight. But when it's time to get down in the trenches, that's when everybody shows. And they always say the new millennials, they don't understand struggle. They don't understand suffering. They don't understand sacrifice. That's why loyalty and sacrifice and courage are now just logos or on T-shirts or tattoos. That's it. Because none of those exist now. Those are unicorns. You find somebody loyal, keep them. Because one thing I actually enjoyed was the fact that there were a couple people that rode with me. And one of the things I enjoyed about this was the officer that arrested me in Augusta. I've said this before, but I cannot remember his name to save my life. The officer that arrested me, we had a nice little conversation. During the trial, he did not get charged. He did not get called to the stand. And the reason he didn't get called to the stand was because when he first saw me, because again, it goes back to what I told John Melvin. Y'all tried to destroy my character. The problem is I'm not acting. You tried to assassinate my character, but I'm not acting. This is who I am. So when this officer saw me in Atlanta, in DeKalb County, in the courthouse, when we were going, I was walking out, he was walking in, he didn't stick his hand out to shake my hand. He gave me a hug. But again, I'm supposed to be this sovereign citizen. I'm David Koresh. I'm a killer. I hate the government. All these things that they were saying. The problem was, it didn't match people's vision. They couldn't say it enough for it to take effect. This police officer, dude I'm supposed to hate, didn't stick his hand out to shake my hand, gave me a hug. After knowing all of this stuff, after arresting me, after doing all this other stuff, because he read the file. He seen everything that was going on. He read everything that was supposed to be said. And he did more giggling than anything else. He turned into a schoolgirl. Because the funny part was, I asked him, and it almost hurt my heart. I said, hold on. I said, y'all got me up here. I'm not handcuffed. You didn't do all this other extra stuff. You didn't come to me with your chest out. You didn't speak to me crazy. Why is that? He smiled at me. He looked me straight in the eye. He said, you know what? I've been doing this job for 10 years. He said, and I arrest killers every day. You're not one. It made me feel good, but it also hurt my heart because, again, they said I was a killer. They said that we were going to have a Waco-style standoff. I was David Koresh. I was all these other things, these derogatory names, and I'm a terrorist. But they couldn't win over the thing because what people saw was different. They couldn't use their paintbrush the way they wanted to use it. They couldn't use the words that they were doing in their indictment to weaponize them against me. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about, even with these other officers, just as I talked about, if you're condoning the action, if you're not doing anything, you're part of the problem because you're telling them it's okay to keep doing what they're doing. They violated because not only did they not correct it, they encouraged it. They also were now suffering because of it. The only difference is their names are released. None of them are suffering anything other than being fired, and they will be rehired at another precinct. I'm going to say that again. They are fired. They will be rehired because the police union is the actual problem in this country. They protect bad officers. They protect uneducated officers. They protect poor behavior. And we encourage it by not fighting. And I always tell people when they ask me, what would you do? That's horrible. That's a horrible question. Because my answer is always, if you didn't do it, fight. If you did it, fight. I can't give it to you. Because there was a time I was guilty of shit. I fought it. They dismissed the case. The problem is, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And I'm going to make you prove everything. I'm challenging everything. Now, I watched a show called In Contempt. It's one of those shows where because it's the first season, just like Law and Order and a few other shows, The Defenders, and even occasionally The Good Fight and The Good Wife and all those legal shows, all of them in their first season generally have some good cases to study. They also give you good ideas or good introductions to concept. Or in this case, I gave you one because I used it in a video and it was dealing with a Terry stop and understanding whenever I say they cannot search you or quote unquote pat you down even for a safety check unless they have consent or they have a warrant. She spoke about that while the officer was on the stand. And because of that, she was able to get something suppressed. Because he used officer safety versus what the actual law allows. I even speak about the context of what happens during that stop. These are things that are glossed over because this young man was indicted. Simply because the picture that was painted was easy because there is no opposition in a grand jury. Even if a person comes in and wants to testify on their own behalf, which to me is stupid because now your grand jury testimony is like putting an affidavit in for something. Because I can only think of a handful of times where someone testified in their own grand jury and it worked. It got dismissed. Because just because they do it one time, you come in and do it one time, does not offer them an opportunity to not try it again. Because if they want to indict you or indict anyone for anything, they can. Because they will continue to keep bringing in people until either they're told not to or they get the verdict they're looking for, unless they get the true bill. But just because they have it does not mean that is evidence. It's only something that can be challenged. It's another aspect which can be challenged. Just like I tell people, speeding tickets, you challenge not only the stop, you challenge the gun, you challenge the chain of custody, you even challenge the integrity of the officer. But you challenge it. And one of the things I like, because even the whole context of this podcast today was defending Jacob. The one thing that I enjoyed about this series, because the finale came on a couple of days ago, and I had an opportunity to not only watch it, I had an opportunity to kind of allow it to digest, because it actually played out in a different scenario than I expected to. And when you look at it, it goes into the depths of how much this is actually modern warfare. Why they have the idea or the context of it's us against them. Because we're going into a situation knowing they're not doing things the right way, but we're still, because of programming, trust that they're doing the right thing. Then we're becoming upset because they're not doing the right thing, or they're doing the things that I told you they were going to do. Because I constantly say the nature of the beast doesn't change, just the players. That's it. All of them are reading from the exact same playbook. You know, because right now I look at myself as Bill Belichick. And our justice system are the Jets. Our justice system are the Eagles. Because we are taking their playbook. We know their plays. We know how they're going to play it. And we're only basing things off responses. Because that's all we need to do is continue to respond. Let them know we're still in the game. Because all we need to do is score once. We have the ability to stop them from scoring. We're keeping our mindset, we're keeping our cool, and we're not allowing them to frustrate us. That is the big key to what everything is right now. It's knowing that you have everything in hand. You are the one that's in control. And you are the one that dictates how this goes. Because again, even with defending Jacob, one of the things I enjoyed was the fact that they didn't only encounter issues, but they responded to those issues as they were encountered. Because one of the greatest things about it was the fact that in my trial, my brother comes to me because I was getting kind of nervous. He told me, he said, you need to know them better than they know them. So I actually not only dug into my opposition, because I think I refer to it mostly as watching game film. I actually watched them at work. I would go and sit while they were having trials, while they were doing deliberation, while they were holding a hearing. I would go and sit. But the one thing that set me apart was I began to understand mannerisms. I began to understand tactics. And that's one of the things why I look at that. Because even in show, in contempt, in defending Jacob, all of it showed out how each one of these aspects are chess pieces. Because each aspect shows one thing or another. And each move has a counter move. And each counter move has another move behind it. Because in many cases, like I watch Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I watch MMA, and they talk about how every move has a counter. And then how you can counter the counter. And that's exactly what law is. But it's one of those things like Bruce Lee spoke about. Becoming water. Water is the most adaptive and the strongest. You don't respond or react to difference or changes or things that come in your way that don't go your way. You actually respond in a manner that allows you to continue winning. That's what this is. Because just because they do something, you should expect them to do something. Because I'll tell you, 99.9% of the time, they don't want to lose. I told you, they can't apologize. You know this. You witness this. You watch this. And then it becomes a shock when they don't apologize. And they show you they can't apologize. Just like it becomes a shock whenever you listen to defense attorneys tell you that due process is discretionary. The judge determines if you have due process or not. And they're defending you. You've paid them to defend you. These are the things that I tell you that when they're shown to you in real life, it becomes one of those, because, okay, I want you to understand, the situation I had with Ann at Sudlow and Sudlow here in Houston is not singular. You would not believe the amount of people that have called me, that have told me, you know what, I hired an attorney, and this is what happened. Or I hired an attorney, and then they gave me a deal to plead out. What was the purpose of hiring them if you still got to pay more money? What was the purpose of hiring them if you're still not getting the representation that you're looking for? Because, again, I look at it like this. If I pay somebody, they're an employee, right? If their employee doesn't do what I ask them to do, they're fired. I mean, it's literally that simple. But, again, that's the separation. That's why I tell people, you're worrying about titles. That's the problem I have with titles. Because when it's time to do things that are hard, those are what kings and queens do. When it's time to do things that are necessary for the benefit of not only yourself, but everyone, those are the hard things that bosses do. People are calling themselves kings and queens and bosses and not able to do the king and queen boss thing. That's what I'm talking about. Because it literally is that simple. It is literally that matter of fact. It is literally you versus them. And it's just like I told you, all the police officers I sued, only 2 didn't shake my hand. Because those 2 had some personal stuff. John Melvin had some personal stuff. He would not shake my hand. Everybody that was around him shook my hand because they understood it was business. It had nothing to do with personal shit. Because that's what it is. Anytime you are having an encounter with the police, that is a business negotiation. That is a business transaction. That citation is a contract. Because anything that you need your signature on as a guarantee is a contract. I showed you the video where I spoke about that, where I called it a contract. Even those that contradicted, the lawyer in the video said it was a contract because it's a guarantee. Your signature activates the guarantee. But again, that's part of my indictment. I say it not to sound good, not to impress myself, because again, I've been there, done that, bought a t-shirt, and I'm still going. But it's your ideals of what needs to be done. It's your decision to strap up, throw down, and be ready to die for that shit if you have to. I get it that you want to go out here, you're frustrated, you're angry, and you want change. Change comes from standing up, actually. Change doesn't come from tearing up your shit. Change comes from tearing up their shit. Making them suffer. Because if you're the one you tear up something and you're cutting a check, you're the only one that's going in debt. You're the only one that's suffering. You're the only one that has to deal with it. Because, as my grandmama used to say, you done made your bed. You done dug your own grave. I mean, it's a whole slew of them. I can just keep going with all these country ass sayings. But it's understanding. I'm not going to tear up my shit. I can't. I am not built to tear up what belongs to me. Because when you understand that the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, if you're the one that's stealing and destroying, you're also the one that's killing. I'm going to say that one more time. If you're the one that's stealing and destroying, you're also the one killing. Because you're becoming part of the problem. These words are in black and white for a reason. These things that are being shown to you are being shown to you for a reason. And the programming itself is only for those, because just like I'm gonna give you a couple little things before I leave off today. I never understood the context of the written word. Because even now, even to this day, people are telling me, you need to write a book on this. You need to put a blog up. And I'm like, I don't want to type nothing. I really don't. The editing I do is enough. And they're like, no, you need to take it to another level. And then I think, who in the hell reads? Ain't nobody reading. They're barely reading my subtitles. They're barely reading my videos. They're barely. Why would I actually add more writing to something? I don't want to do that. Because nobody's reading. One of the guys told me, he said, you know what? He said, but that's the separation. He said, you're already doing something nobody's doing. You're already giving them something nobody's been giving them. He said, you need to continue being different. Keep standing out. Open up to a new crowd. He said, because again, now you become part of that 1% that do read. And I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then he asked me, he said, who do you appeal to? And that actually resonated. That hit me so hard I had to sit down. And I was like, wow. Because when I started looking at what it is I do, I started understanding what it is that I give you. And when I started accepting the fact that what I was purposing myself to do, I decided that at some point I will sit down. I will do that. Just ain't gonna be today. But again, it's another feather in the cap. It's another thing that I can do to actually indict the system. Because I don't sell templates. I don't sell a lot of other things. But I will offer you something that allows you to do it yourself. I will offer you something because one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to write anything. Can I? Absolutely. Can I direct you? Absolutely. Do I have things that can be tailored? Absolutely. But in the context of just doing it, nah, I'm good. But I will. But here's the greatest part about this. Do you have a picture that you want to paint? Do you have a story that you want to tell? Do you have something that you want to convey that allows you or others to see things the way you see them? And V from Vendetta is, do you see as I see? Do you feel as I feel? If you watch that speech in V from Vendetta, that was his indictment against the system. Do you have an indictment against the system? Or are you just condoning it and enjoying it the way that it is already set up? That's all I have for you guys today. I appreciate you guys listening. Don't forget support on SoundCloud. Hit the support button on iTunes or Anchor or whatever podcasting platform that you're on, or even in Spotify. I love you guys. Let's keep going. Let's keep growing. And don't forget, share anytime you have an opportunity. And this is Supreme, and I'm out.
I'm going to show you how great I am.